Good afternoon. My name is Lora Kennedy and I am co-owner of Farmland Quilting and Embroidery, and we have a product called Stable Piecing. And today I want to show you how to use that product and along with the pattern to make the pineapple quilt. And you'll see it right here behind me. The purple and white and gray. This is also another color version with the three different colors. That's what we're going to work on today. First of all, you're going to have a pattern and you're going to have a package of foundations. That's your minimum requirement to make this. You have to have the foundation so that you can sew and make your blocks out of each one of these. This comes 12 in a package. The back of the pattern gives you the requirements for whatever size quilt you want to make. We're just going to start with one block today. After you've made this purchase, you've got your fabric. My three colors are chosen here. The only other requirements that you have to have as far as tools is you have to have a cutting mat, a ruler, and a rotary cutter. That's what we're going to start with. Every one of these pieces is cut from a strip of some sort. The center of this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's numbers in each one of these pieces you're going to put on the foundation. That's your piecing sequence. The letter that's behind it tells you what color. A, B, and C are your color choices. Now I'm going to cut strips. Every piece in this is cut from a strip of some sort. We have one strip that is the size for the center square. We have another size strip that takes care of every one of these pieces around that. And the third size strip is made for your corners. So the first strip and the outside strip, you don't need near as many of. Okay, the center is a 3.5 inch strip. You cut a 3.5 inch strip off of your color A, which in my case was the lavender. Then I subcut to 3.5 inch squares. That gives me my center. I do a whole strip of those if I'm going to make a quilt. That gives me quite a number of blocks to work on. The next strips are 1 5/8 inch. I use a 1 5/8 inch quilt stick to make my cuts. That way I know I'm always going to get 1 5/8 inch. So I cut along this, and that gives me my 1 5/8 inch strips. And I'll cut a bunch, maybe a dozen of each color. Then the next thing I'm going to cut is a 5 3/4 inch strip of both my white and the gray, because that is colors B and C. These are my outside corners. I have a 3.5 inch square that I'm going to put in part under piece number 1. So the first thing I do is turn the foundation over, so I'm always working, my fabric is always attached to the back side of the foundation, or the unprinted side. A little bit of school glue. I like the purple sometimes because it's easier for me to see where I've been. Just kind of dab a little on there. And this is the way I do so I can see. My fabric is on a light colored mat, and it is put with its wrong side up, and then I put the glued part of the foundation down over the top of it. So I can see through that and see that I have a 1/4 inch outside my sewing lines for that piece. And I put it in place. Now you put piece number 1 in place. Easy one to do. Alright, now we're going to go to piece number 2, which is right here. The first thing you do is you lay your index card, something stiff, I use this little ruler, on the line you're going to sew next, which is the line attaching piece number 2 to number 1. Hold that down there. Fold the foundation back over that index card. This is where you're going to use the add 1/4 ruler. But the lip of the add 1/4 ruler up against that elevated edge that you just created with that index card. Okay? Then you're going to trim off anything that sticks out past that add 1/4 ruler. That gets you to a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, before we flip the foundation over, we're going to measure and cut the piece for number 2. You're going to measure the longest side of piece 2. Measure that and add a 1/4 inch on each side, or about a 1/2 inch. That's going to put us just a flicker under 3.5. I'm going to say 3.5 just to give us a little wiggle room. Okay, 3.5 inches. Let's remember that now. That one is going to be fabric B, which is the white. So we're going to take one of the 1 5/8 inch strips of fabric B that we cut earlier. Now you're going to take a ruler that has a 45-degree angle that intersects at the point. Much easier to use it this way. Put that ruler down and make a 45-degree angle on the edge of that strip. Now, 3.5 inches is what we measured. You're going to go down this 45-degree angle until you find the 3.5-inch line right here. You're going to put this 45-degree angle on the longest edge of your strip. Now that you've cut an angle on the strip, you have a long side and a short side. So the 3.5 inches is going to be down the long side. That 3.5-inch line should also line up with the 45-degree angle you just cut on that strip. Now make your cut for that. You now have the piece that's going to fit there. Now, you're going to need another piece on the other side, so we might as well cut it at the same time. You still need it 3.5 inches, so now the longest side of the strip has moved to this side. Lay the 3.5-inch mark down on that longest side again, and cut the other piece. And that's going to go there. Now, let's put on piece number 2 before we go any farther. We're going to flip this over. Now we have a cut edge and a cut edge, and we're going to line those up together, just like you would sew and do in any other sewing project. Raw edge to raw edge, fabric right sides together. I'm going to pin this. And I'm going to pin it back here because I'm going to sew right here. And yes, I do need pins. I'll show you why in a minute. Somebody asked me one time if I would not use pins if I were at home, and I said, yeah, I do, because I haven't figured out how to make gravity work backwards, and I'll show you why. Because I'm going to sew with the fabric down, and if I don't pin it, it's not going to stay there. So now I'm going to put under my machine foot. Now you have to set your machine for a very small stitch length. 1.5 to 1.8 is preferred. 18 to 20 stitches to the inch, depending on how your stitch measurement is on your machine. This machine, I'm going to change it to a 1.5. This machine also has a stitch on it where I can back tack at the beginning and at the end of the seam, and it does it automatically. If yours doesn't, you will want to back tack at the beginning and at the end, just 1 or 2 stitches. Sink your needle at the point where the lines intersect, and you're going to start sewing, and you're going to sew on that line. When you get to the other end of it, you back tack and stop. Do not over sew. Okay, now that we've got our white pieces on and we've got them pressed into place, the 2 gray pieces are going to go in here. And you're going to keep working around in numerical order until you get all your pieces on. Exactly the same way. The one thing that you must remember to do first is always put this down and create your 1/4 inch seam allowance before you sew your piece on. Do that every time you put a piece on. That's highly critical. When you get to the very outside edge, you've got your large corners out here. You take a 5 3/4 inch squares that we've already pre-cut when we first started, and you cut that on one diagonal, one of each color. And then you put those on the corners to correspond with the color B or C, whichever you chose, and that finishes your block. At that point, your block is all completed. The next thing to do is to trim it out. You're going to have little jagged edges, similar to this one. This one has just been pieced, but it's not been trimmed. So these are to finish 12.5 inches cut, 12 inches finished. So you want to make sure that there is a seam allowance line around this edge. you're going to make sure that you've got a 12.5-inch block and trim it so that it's ready to put side by side with all the rest of your blocks. You can wait to trim your blocks till later. You can do them as you go. That is your choice. We have this available in our shop. We do shows where it's available too in person, and you can get it anytime you want to online. And our website is www.farmlandquilting.net, and all of this is on our website. If you need further instruction, replay this video as many times as you want, and if you need extra other than that, give me a holler, give me a call, email, send me pictures of what you're doing. If I happen to be in an area where your show is, I'm more than willing to take time to help you if I'm in a show someplace. Just give me a holler and let me know. I appreciate your support, and hope to see you next time. Thank you.